At the scheme is done all year round compared to only one season in the main maize producing regions in Kenya, and the crop matures within 70 days at the irrigation scheme, whereas in North Rift region the crop is harvested only once a year due to over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture.
Sasa msaada saa hii mtu akija aseme anataka msaada ili awekewe tractor.
The county government has promised to empower farmers by providing tractors to prepare land and also support the farmers with seeds and fertilizers as a way of encouraging more people to engage in farming.
Kwa serikali tutahakikisha mbegu zinaletwa, shamba iko hapa, maji iko, watu wetu walime.
Terry Njenga, Lunchtime News.
Well, we now want to take you over to South Africa to discuss matters transportation and, to be specific, sustainable mobility, with Kenyans as well as the rest of the world moving from fossil fuels and looking to shift to electric vehicles. What will it take to achieve this dream, and what do governments as well as the private sector need to do? To have this conversation is Mandla Lamba. He is the Chief Executive Officer and founder at Agility Africa, joining me from South Africa. Thank you, Mandla, for joining us on KBC. If you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's start off with just where e-mobility is currently. Of course, there's been a push to have more electric vehicles adopted. There have to be systems that have to be put in place for that to be successful. Where are we currently?
We are slagging behind, and I'm worried, though there are now steps that you can see that are at least getting visible, but there's been a slagging behind of the e-mobility in Africa. And the reason for this is that there is lesser participation from the government point of perspective, because if there was that support from governments across the continent, I believe that the stages where we are would have advanced much more than where we are today.
For this to be successful, governments, they have to put in place a number of things such as regulations and incentives. Do you think Africa is on the right track when it comes to this?
Yeah, regulations are the reforms of systems that are in place that were used, for an example, to regulate the automobile industry in terms of the homologation of vehicles and so forth. These are things that are causing a lot of even young stars and young entrepreneurs in Africa to take time before they can come into the market, because they realize that if I'm going to apply for a license with the government to be a manufacturer, the manufacturing license, which is for homologation of the vehicles, it takes long. And another thing that adds to this problem that we are having is the fact is iPhone, and there's other phones like Samsung and the other phones, but they prioritize iPhone more than they prioritize any other phone. Electric vehicles in Africa are what we would call the iPhone in the first world. Electric vehicles is what is needed in Africa. We have a problem of jobs cuts. Those who manage to keep their jobs, they get lucky, but they get salaries reduced. We have a problem of skyrocketing petrol prices in Africa. We have a problem of a lack of government support in the industry of manufacturing of electric vehicles in Africa. And all these things, they add up to a stagnating green revolution movement in Africa. But I believe if we can have the government's hands on deck, this will be much more easier. Someone would say to me, but we have a problem. If I buy the electric vehicle, it's expensive. But for Africa, there are means to make electric vehicles affordable because they are a necessity. When something is a necessity, you are able to come up with solutions. For Africa, for Kenya, for East Africa, this is a need. It's a necessity. It's not an issue where we say, no, the government cannot be able to look into this. If they start flexing up the regulations and allowing new players to come into the market, even people in Kenya who are interested in the EV space, if someone says, I'm going to go register a company and I'm going to start and get into this and try and raise capital, then you hit a snag that you'll have vehicles, you'll be able to get to a stage where you have a prototype, but it's not regulated to operate on the road, because the government would take a year or more to get homologation done. That's not right.
So Mandla, as you say that it is a necessity for Africa to move to electric vehicle or electric mobility, how about matters such as charging points, where it's easy to find fuel? I mean, you can just go into a fueling station and fuel your car, but charging points are not as plenty as you would want them to be. So before more people adopt this, there have to be charging points. What can be done to hasten this process?
You see, it pulls us back. I love this beautiful question. It takes us back to the same thing I was saying. If the government was providing incentives for the industry and flexing up things, it would be easy even for other investors to come into the infrastructure development of their vehicles. What you're saying is very true. It's not easy for you to tell someone who's got about 6-7 filling stations of petrol in a radius of about 5 kilometers from where they stay. In the same, when they're at work, they've got maybe 7 or 8 more filling stations in a radius of about 2 kilometers from where they work. And then you tell them to convert into electric vehicles. It's not easy when you're going to find one electric vehicle charging station probably 40 kilometers. It's not easy. So if the government can participate, I'll give you an example. In the oil industry, we had the beauty of that the private sector was the one that actually that still controls the automobile industry. Petrol companies and all these companies that are involved, like your BP, Sasol in South Africa, and the rest of them. But in this one, the government has not had this part to play. We are at the end of an old order of the world and the beginning of a new world order, which is driven by green revolution. This is where the governments are supposed to be saying, let us come in and invest even in the infrastructure. You look at America, the government of America has been rolling out charging stations, but the government in Africa are waiting. You don't know why they're waiting. So in America, they understand that by the time the button is pressed, that no more petrol cars on the road, the government will be making money from these charging machines. But the African government don't see it that way. That's the problem that we are having.
That needs to be sorted out. Mandla, you had talked about the price point for these electric vehicles. Now, there is the issue of innovation and just using technology to solve these problems, especially for the African continent, how to reduce this price point from an innovation perspective. Do you think that we have the capacity to do this? And what needs to be done to support technologies and innovation in the electric vehicle market?
I'm glad you asked that question, because we're the first ones to do it. Agility has launched in the past few months. We launched Agility at Last, which is our entry-level electric vehicle, which is a 4-wheeler. It's a car that has a range of about 100 kilometers. It's an entry-level vehicle. And this car costs about $10,000. And it comes with its own, what you would call in a cell phone, a power bank. When you can't charge at home, you've got this. It has that you put in the boot of your car. Every time you run out of, you can charge. So it's a 10,000 rand car. And then one of the ones we came with, it's because of the environment, we have a problem of outages. Even now, electricity just came back in South Africa an hour ago. We've been in the dark. Electricity goes for about 4.5 hours, 3 times a day in South Africa as we speak right now. And I know this crisis is not just happening in South Africa, it's happening across the continent of Africa. So we also looked at that and said, how do we then come up with something that would solve this problem? The first thing we did was to manufacture a car called Agility Go. This car is self-charging. It has a solar panel on the roof, but well nice. It doesn't look like you think it's a sunroof. It's a sunroof. It charges while you are parked at work. When it's fully charged, it will give you a range of 400 kilometers when it's fully charged. You can travel 400 kilometers clean. you don't have to charge it. It charges from the sun. And then we came up with a charging system, which is the fastest charging system in Africa. And this charging system is called Agility Power Boost 7. This Power Boost 7 allows us to generate power to charge cars, not just Agility cars, all electric vehicles in this charging system. And this charging system is able to charge, to generate electricity. Part of the electricity that is generated from solar, not from the grid, from solar, is transmitted into a storage system, an energy management system. If that energy management system is full, the other energy gets used. When the other energy is used and there's more produced than what is being currently used, the other energy gets saved, so there's no wastage. So this system has a management, an energy management system that can be able to store up to 350 kilowatts of energy in one charging point that can charge 2 cars. So that can help you charge 10 cars every 3-4 hours a day for a period of 20 days or 30 days without worrying about electricity, because we store the energy. When the weather is not favorable, we use the energy that has been stored, and then when the weather is favorable, we generate more energy.
Mandla,
so we have solved the problem. It's not that we can't prove it. We've already done it. We've got affordable cars already on the road in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. So as we come to a close of this conversation, you are in the startup business and you have first-hand experience of how that is, especially in this sector. What do you think governments can do specifically to empower more startups to enter this space? About a minute or so for you, please.
Yeah, I would say this. I believe that the problems of Africans can only be resolved by people in Africa. In the old order of the world, we had a situation where our problems would be our solutions for the problems we have would be provided by people from the West who don't know what truly happens in Africa. We are here, we wear the shoe, we know how it fits. So the people who will be able to solve daily problems like immobility in Africa will be Africans who live in this continent, who are not here to make money from it and exit. People are here to see this develop. And this cannot be done without the government flexing up regulations. First regulation to be flexed up. The government needs to flex up the registration of homologation for entrance in the industry. People who want to come into for them to get all the approvals by the government that they are manufacturers like any other foreign entity, but these are locals. That's number one. Number two, government coming up with incentives that incentivize not just the manufacturers, but incentivize the buyers. If the government says if a car costs $6,000, for an example, the government says if you buy an electric car, we will give you, if it's $6,000, we'll pay $2,000 for you. You only have to pay $4,000. And then also find another incentive method for manufacturers. I believe there will be a huge participation. And this would have to be backed up also by infrastructure development, which makes it easy for someone to twist or move from a petrol car to an electric car, because there is enough charging stations across the continent.
Right. Thank you very much, Mandalamba, for speaking with us. We have been talking about sustainable mobility and the journey towards just having more electric vehicles on the road. Thank you very much for speaking with us. Well, that is Mandalamba. He is the CEO and founder of Agility Africa and was joining us from South Africa. We move on to other news. Feed millers have been allowed to import 350,000 tons of yellow maize duty-free for 1 year to curb the high cost of animal feeds in the country. The import license will only be issued to registered feed millers who are only required to import non-GMO grain.
Just days after the government announced it will open a 7-month duty-free import window for rice and maize to cushion Kenyans against high food prices, the government is also set to zero-rate yellow maize imports. The Ministry of Agriculture says the move is aimed at reducing the cost of animal feeds that currently oscillate at an average of 3,500 to 4,000 shillings, considerably increasing the cost of production. To facilitate the yellow maize imports, the Ministry of Agriculture is finalizing the gazettement of a 1-year yellow maize duty-free import window. According to Association of Kenyan Feed Manufacturers, the government has only allowed them to import non-GMO yellow maize due to the ruling by the High Court that stopped the importation and distribution of GMO foods in the country. The association says only registered feed millers will be allowed to import the grain to deter traders from selling yellow maize to residents in drought-stricken areas. Feed millers say Mexico, Ukraine, and Romania have ready grain, urging the government to speed up gazettement of the import window to allow them purchase the yellow maize in time before the supply dries up. Feed millers have been encouraged to consider supporting contract farming system for local production of raw materials used for feed production to lower the cost of feed and reduce the country's import bill. Benson Rioba reporting for Lunchtime News.
Now, world billionaire Elon Musk is set to step down as a Twitter CEO when he finds a replacement. This is after Musk promised earlier to abide by the result of a Twitter poll, which saw 57.5% of the vote having the vote as yes for him to step down. He says he will still run the software and servers teams after his replacement is found. More details of these and more stories from the Global Roundup.
Since Musk bought the social media site in October, he has fired about half of its staff and attempted to roll out of Twitter's paid-for verification feature before putting it on pause. On Friday, Musk was condemned by the United Nations and European Union over Twitter's decision to suspend some journalists who cover the social media firm. Musk is now finding someone to lead the platform. Some people speculate Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey could come back to run the company. He resigned as chief executive in November 2021. Meanwhile, manufacturing giant 3M has said it will stop making and using so-called forever chemicals, common materials that have been linked to a range of health problems, including cancer. The firm, which also makes Post-its, cited increased regulatory and consumer concern about the substances known as PFAS to explain the move. The chemicals are used in many everyday items, including food packaging. Finally, China's economic activity is on an upswing as manufacturing production across the country is back in full swing and local governments increasing efforts to ensure the supply of food and other essentials. As COVID-19 measures have eased, manufacturing production across the country is back on track. Some companies called in employees from other locations to deal with an influx of orders.
Now, new data prepared by the African Development Bank in collaboration with the African Union Commission shows that while the EAC is generally supportive of integration and regional trade, members of the bloc have retained certain non-tariff barriers that curtail the movement of people within partner states. Special interest traders say the existing integration policies are not strong on facilitating intra-regional trade among women, youth, and people living with disabilities in the EAC bloc.
New data prepared by the African Development Bank in collaboration with the African Union Commission shows that while the EAC is generally supportive of integration and regional trade, members of the bloc have retained certain non-tariff barriers that curtail the movement of people within partner states. Special interest traders say the existing integration policies are not strong on facilitating intra-trade among women, youth, and people living with disabilities in the EAC bloc.
We know that in most companies that grow coffee, women do contribute a lot. But you find that since they can't afford to reach here, to reach like at the final market, you find that their story ends where? In the village. Businesses like Ndabaga Women's Coffee are now calling for crafting of policies that will strengthen the participation of special interest groups in the EAC trading bloc.
Kwa hiyo kitu kikubwa ambacho natamani kuona watu wanakifanyia kazi ni kutangaza haya maonyesho, kuhakikisha wanapeleka taarifa kwenye vyuo vikuu, kwenye maeneo yote, ili vijana haswa wajue kwamba kuna fursa kama hii.
If I'm to connect with someone from Kenya with coffee, she might say, oh wow, you was the best, and I might say, oh wow, you was the best too. And you find that we can work together, we connect to those women from Kenya who grow coffee, as well as those in Rwanda, from Uganda, from Tanzania, from Congo, and South Sudan, and Burundi.
According to the Africa Visa Openness Index, while the EAC had one of the highest openness scores in 2017, that grade dropped last year as member states increased and individual member states imposed their own restrictions, thereby affecting trade.
Yanatupa nafasi ya kufahamiana na kujua nchi fulani kuna fursa gani. Hizi ni fursa. Kwa hiyo kuja kwenye maonyesho kama haya kuna fursa nyingi ambazo vijana wengi ningewahamasisha waje. Kuna vijana wengi wako mtaani hawana ajira.
EAC member states have been seeking to align trade policies to enhance cross-border trade by involving special groups. Alan Auko, Lunchtime News.
Well, that's it from the business desk this afternoon, but of course more news is coming up. Jackie is on the other side ready to bring you that. My name is Betty Kiptum. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Jackie?
Well, thank you so much, Betty Kiptum, with the business news. Now we look at other news where Kilifi County government is seeking to set up a new department that will coordinate all donor partners and private sector programs to avoid duplication of projects. Speaking during the signing of a memorandum of understanding with World Vision, an ungovernmental organization, World Vision Kenya National Director Gilbert Kamange revealed that the organization's annual investment in the county is 480 million shillings for various projects, adding that their plan is to see a return on investment by the uplifting the lives of the communities they serve.
When we have a directorate, it's be able to coordinate the programs. Sometimes we receive so much, but you have so many partners in this county, everybody doing something small. We want to coordinate in a way that we can work together with all the partners to do major things which will change the lives of our people.
With this MOU, we want to ensure that we are managing our programs together with your government, that we plan together, we implement together, we monitor together, as we have been doing with other counties where World Vision is working.
So we're actually here to commit that we are keen to co-invest in Kilifi County together with the county government to ensure that the people of Kilifi County are actually receiving more services, because together we are able to do much.
And now we cross over to Ngong Hill Forest in Kajiado, where President William Ruto is expected to launch the National Tree Growing and Land Restoration campaign as part of his administration climate action. The campaign, which is being unveiled at Ngong Hills Forest, is part of the government's ambitious program, which is aimed at managing, conserving and expanding forest sustainability towards attaining a minimum 30% forest cover nationally by 2032. Currently, Environment Cabinet Secretary Soipantria is speaking. Let's listen.
Planted trees, the number of years they have lived on this earth, these 15 billion targets, like I say, will be very easily surmountable. It is for this reason, Your Excellency, that today you have chosen to lead from the front, and we are here today to help you plant 560,000 trees countrywide, and this exercise is happening to mark your birthday. Your Excellency, allow me to lead Kenyans in wishing you a happy birthday, and we look forward to you jazaing miti as we celebrate jointly. We launched this mission, 15 billion at Jaza Miti, a few days to Christmas. My plea to you this Christmas, fellow Kenyans, is that we should not cut any Christmas tree. Instead, let each one of us plant a Christmas tree somewhere in our backyards for those who are able to. Let us then each Christmas decorate these live trees in our backyards as we grow and nurture them to maturity. That is just a simple plea to you, my fellow Kenyans, and this we can do. We have partners here, Your Excellency, who have supported the ministry both in monetary and seedling support during the launch of this campaign. And we would like to really say thank you to them. We have Kumanza, we have KCB here, we have ABSA, we have PCEA Church, we have Safaricom, we have Egerton University, Petroleum Institute of Kenya, and the Ministry of Energy, Your Excellency, and so many others. We have been able to get 101.2 million seedlings just for this season. We will not plant all of them, because what we've done today is to carefully select the sites for the tree planting, because, Your Excellency, you know that we want to move the country from just planting trees to actually growing them and nurturing them to maturity. Part of the partnerships we have here, Your Excellency, we have a young man called Jabari, years old, from central Finland, whose mother is from Siaya. Your Excellency, Jabari has, during this season, adopted Lamuyek Primary School in Tiati constituency and has already planted the first 200 trees in the school. And as young as he is, Your Excellency, and he is in talks with the Kenya Forest Service, he is actually very eager to turn Baringo County green, Your Excellency. How I got to know about Jabari, once he heard about your pronouncement of 15 billion trees, he actually wrote you a letter. But somehow the letter did not find its way to your desk. It found its way to my desk. And Your Excellency, the simple request for me at this point is to kindly request you to receive the letter from Jabari, one of our biggest champions of today. Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you, Your Excellency. Congratulations, Jabari. And Your Excellency, in our strategy, we have a fully thought out plan on how to engage our young people in this campaign. Your Excellency, this National Tree Growing Restoration Campaign is going to provide a chance as a country to employ our young people. We look forward to creating a green army, as has been pronounced by you, which is a dedicated team of young men and women across the country, the hustlers, who will provide the support of our tree growing efforts in raising the seedlings at the tree nurseries, and will also support planting and growing these trees to maturity. Your Excellency, we made a choice of Kajiado, the Ngong Forest today, and we already have a team of 250 young people who are actually our pilot of the Green Army of young people that we are going to engage in this country to help us in this exercise, to create jobs for them, but also to make our exercise successful. Your Excellency, this is important because you will realize that and our partners, one of the challenges we are having is irregular rainfall, but I want to assure you, Your Excellency, this particular exercise of 21st of December is well crafted, well thought out. Your trees forest that is going to come. We have one done by our former president, His Excellency Kibaki, and we deliberately put them side by side because actually His Excellency, the late Kibaki's forest almost came through 100% to maturity. And we are determined to make sure that the 5,600 trees we did today, we couldn't do more, because of the irregular rainfall, but I can assure you we are going to make sure that they survive to maturity. And you can come back and check, Your Excellency, once in a while. Your Excellency, also to say that the 15 billion trees will be done in 2 phases, as you have directed. The first phase of 5 billion trees will be done between now and 2027, and the next phase of 10 billion trees between 2027 and 2032. But if we manage to inculcate the culture among each Kenyan, I am very confident we are going to surpass this way before 2032. We will be putting the growth of these trees. Our opportunity as our country to expand the tree and forest cover to 30%, again, Your Excellency, lies in the arid and semi-arid areas. We will concentrate efforts there. The arid and semi-arid parts of this country, they suffer perennial drought and famine. We trust that this growing intervention will help mitigate the effects of the drought and famine, as we will have restored the ecosystem in these parts of the country. Your Excellency, allow me to mention, because our partners are here, that the ministry will be launching the tree. Today we are launching the campaign, but we will be going on to launch the tree growing restoration campaigns, the tree growing restoration strategy, which will make the National Tree Growing Restoration Campaign an all-ministry approach, and we will do this in the first quarter of 2023. And as we speak today, Your Excellency, all the cabinet secretaries, all principal secretaries, and all senior officers in your administration have been requested to preside in at least one tree growing site across the country. And 160,000 seedlings to across the 47 counties in partnership with the governors. We will keep this approach through the 10-year life of this campaign. We will be tiring you a lot with invitations to help us mark the various environmental days throughout the year in order to make this a success. We will be multiplying the factors of the trees we grow, particularly for you, because this is your day, by 56, the next year 57, 58, each of the successive years as our honor, since you agreed we launch this campaign on your birthday. So it will become your tradition, we are requesting, Your Excellency. And we hope that all Kenyans will follow suit. And I thank Her Excellency, the First Lady. She actually surpassed her 10-year target during her birthday. She planted her 300 trees, but she's still doing more, having adopted a section of 200 hectares of Kakamega forest. Thank you, Your Excellency, our First Lady, for your support. You and my fellow and forestry, I will lead this tree, the National Tree Growing Restoration.
Well, we seem to be experiencing some challenges with our signal there. We do apologize for that. That was Environment Cabinet Secretary Soipan
embassies, missions, churches,
mosques, where the launch of the National Tree Growing and Land Restoration Campaign is currently underway. Let's go back to Ngong Hill Forest and listen in.
But as we make our campaign promise of mission 15 billion trees by 2030 a reality. Your Excellency, this we can do. Your Excellency, as I conclude, I just wish to recognize my colleague, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, CS Interior. You can see your army there is very intact, led by the Regional Commissioner. Your Excellency, you can see that, and also PS Raymond. Your Excellency,
Well, that was Environment Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya, where the National Tree Growing and Land Restoration campaign is being launched, and we are expecting President William Ruto to spearhead the launch. Remember, the campaign is being unveiled as part of the government's program, which is aimed at managing, conserving, expanding forest sustainability towards attaining a minimum 30% forest cover nationally by 2032. The event which commences the launch of 15 billion trees campaign dubbed Mission 15B #JazaMiti. The launch is running concurrently in the 47 counties. Remember, this comes even as the government plans to restore 10.6 million hectares of degraded landscapes for improved biodiversity and climate change mitigation and adaptation. Well, that brings us to the end of our lunchtime news. My name is Jackie Wambiru. Our sign language interpreter is Lenza Odingo. For more news, check out our website at kbc.co.ke. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Maisha ni mafupi, hivyo si vyema kumaliza muda mwingi katika malumbano. Hesabu baraka zako, wathamini rafiki zako na tabasamu ili udumishe amani.
Kupata maisha, bonyeza *811 *816 *811 *816
Huyu kwa mwanajamfanya kitu wewe.
Sawa, muue kama ataka kumuua. Utapambana na mkono wa sheria na wewe.
Leo maajabu hujawika kama kawaida yako unaponiona karibu na Abel.
Sijabadilika. Hilo naweza kukuhakikishia.
Sijakuja vita jamani.
Na nani yapigana na wewe?
Sitaki kisa cha Lea na Kate katika maisha yangu mimi. Namtaka huyu mwanamke aniondoke katika maisha yangu.
Ndio kina nani hao?
Wako wapi useme ndio hao?
Christmas is all about giving oneself, sharing, and of course, making others happy. From myself, DJ Tabs, and the entire Backyard crew, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2023. Remember, Jesus is the reason for this season.
Welcome to the Cynthia Nyamai Show. I'm so glad you've joined me today, and I'm so excited about the guest that we have today. She's a celebrity. She's well known in the gospel industry, has been relevant for more than 10 years. I sing to her songs. Today is the first time that I'm getting to meet her, so I have so many questions for her. She's coming up shortly. so much for joining us, Mercy Masika. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too.
It feels like I've known you all my life.
Yeah.
Because I watch your music, dance to your music. Your music speaks to me, and once in a while I just send a message. I'm like, that's a good song.
Yeah, thank you. And I also follow you, and you're amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me. I know a little bit about your family. I've met your dad, of course, on the pulpit. Your mom, and the first time I was listening to your dad, the whispers, everyone was like, that is Mercy Masika's dad. That is Mercy's dad. And I was like, I wonder how life was for her when she was growing up, and the things people say about pastors' children. Are they true? And how was your childhood?
Well, I think my childhood was my parents were servants, so they would serve community. They weren't superstars, and so we never saw anything like them being everything was disciplined in terms of even them modeling the discipline. And so for me, I think being a pastor's kid for me was I didn't go off many times, but it's because I had good models. And so people say a lot of things about pastors' kids. Some I don't know what they say exactly, but I think it's not easy for pastors' kids, especially if they don't have an understanding of why their parents are doing what they're doing. And our parents walked with us every step of the way. They'd be explaining us challenges in ministry, this and that, and would be traveling with them a lot. So I was involved, so I knew their pain. I knew what they were going through. But the best thing is that they were servants and not superstars.
I like that. So you didn't grow up knowing that your dad is well known, because he's famous. He's well known and respected. So you didn't see that side of him. You just saw a dad.
I saw a very disciplined dad. Someone who loves Jesus for real. I'm not saying pastors who have crazy kids don't love Jesus for real.
It's your experience.
But he communicated. I think also the aspect of communication. He's a very good communicator. He made sure that he communicated Jesus and left you to make the decision. Nothing was forced. It was you to make the decision out of what the facts that you see about Jesus. So nothing was forced, and I think that was an advantage, because all of us turned out born again and serving God, and some even as missionaries and all. It's because they explained to us and we chose for ourselves.
The other thing they say about children from ministers' home is a lot of times, and you've said it, there are more of servants serving people and the community, but people say a lot of times, and for you it's both parents, they end up spending more time with the people and the community and not their children. That's why it seems like their children get lost in there, and sometimes even feel like they hate ministry because that took away their time from their parents. What was your experience like?
My parents were counselors, so they would be counseling other people who don't spend time with their kids. And so just the fact that they had a keen interest on counseling, my mom did masters in psychology, that was their line. So they were in touch with, make sure you are intentional about spending time with kids. The only thing I think I didn't like is we would be at home in shags, and in the morning, of course you're selfish as a kid. You see 30 people in the morning, and you have to make tea for them, you have to wash dishes. That's the only thing I didn't like about being a pastor's kid. But later on, I see the impact that it has made in the lives of people. People got education, a community was transformed. And it's beautiful now. It makes sense to me.
And when did you realize that you liked singing, or you even had that talent?
There was a cassette. It was a cassette at the time. Chico and Brenda. I don't know if you had it. So they sang "Soon and Very Soon." It was Brenda Fassie actually. So someone told me, because we were living in interior Machakos, they told me that Brenda is a kid. I was like, what? Okay, there was no internet to research at the time. So I said, what? She's a kid. I can do that and do better. So that Brenda Fassie inspired me. on her Christian album. So I went ahead and told my dad I want to do an album, and I kept repeating I want to do an album.
How old were you?
I was 9.
Yeah.
So at 11 is when I was able to do the album. And from then, I think it was just uphill, you know.
And why gospel? Was it because of growing up in a Christian home, so you probably didn't have the chance or the choice to make, secular music?
I tried, how you try in school to sing them secular songs, those Maria Carey at the time, and Whitney and Celine, and you know how you try those songs, but it feels so empty for me. And so I felt I didn't know that it's purposeful, because I'd feel more happier ministering in worship and in gospel. So when I tried, I'd feel really, really, really sad. And of course, people would go in school like, hey, masika ameimba wimbo ya dunia. I don't know, that somehow molded me.